Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of The Silver Age, The Flash Omnibus Volume 1. Now, you can see there, you've also got the lovely Showcase 4 there. Just brilliant. And then all the details on the back about Flash, as well as the writers, the artist, illustrated by Carmine Infantino and Joe Giella, and also the issues they're in. So, let's see. You've got Showcase 4, 8, 13, 14, as well as The Flash, 105, 132. And then you've got the final Golden Age Flash story as well, 104. Such a pity they haven't brought out omnibus editions of those. However, it's got some introductions as well. Now, let's just show the actual book. So, 860 odd pages, colour all the way through, beautifully restored, really, really sharp in most cases. Not every single... But I think this is an absolutely beautiful, really sharp quality, probably better than the comics. Though, of course, lots of people probably would like to see the original comics. In many ways, they could have just done those, obviously, but they haven't, and we've got what we got. But I think it's just absolutely, really beautifully restored, absolutely all the way through. So let's go from the start. Let's show the first bit. This is just lovely. Silver Age Flash Omnibus Volume 1. And you've got there again, and you've got obviously the writers, the artists, etc. Cover art by, and also then you've got all the comic books. You see there, 1949, so you've got the original cover art. Now it books where's the inks by, but I assume obviously it's Carmine Infantino. Though I must admit the art style looks so different. Looks so different. Is it I assume it is, but it looks very, very unusual. But you can see the stories. They did lots of the stories with 2 stories in a single comic as well. So you've got a lot of material here. Nice introduction as well. Introductions are always great. But I think they're always my favourite reads. That's the first thing I always look for. I always hate it they don't put any bonus material. That's the only thing lacking. Well, you could say that Flash Comics 104 is the bonus material in this. But it still would be nice if they included more. Sadly, they didn't include the Hawkman story, obviously, and also probably were a few others as well, because it was, I don't know, I normally say 52 pages. I assume it was 52 pages back then, 1949, and you got Hawkman, not the Flash, final issue. How bad is that? Final issue? No, we're not even going to put you on there. Oh, it does say 52. I knew it was. I was looking for 52. Right, and you could barely see that. Comics. I wonder why they put it over the banner, over the top of comics. However, the artwork is not everyone's cup of tea, I guess. It's always a bit rough and not as clean and nice looking. And the stories were quite often that it was a gang or something that was always causing trouble, that sort of thing. It was always Flash. You think, well, hang on, he's the fastest man in the world. He should be able to beat any gang. There's no gang in the world. He could whip them all off to prison before they even sort of blink. But he never does. But that, I guess that just ruins the story, wouldn't it? But you've got lovely... They've got the origin. I wonder why they put the origin in the last issue. Did they know it was the last issue? And they, oh, we're going to put the origin in. We're just going to... Just an odd thing. Maybe they thought it was going to continue the next issue. Just doesn't make sense. Anyway, however, of course, you've got the classic. You've got all the covers. I just love that they include... And they're all beautifully restored in most cases. That one is glorious. Now, this one is slightly rougher, weirdly, than some of the others. Later on, it's really, really sharp. Really, I think, infinitely better than the originals. Well, other than the fact that it's not the same as the originals. It's been cleaned up. Not everyone likes that, I know. But you can see there, obviously, Flash seeing all the various things. That must be really weird living in a world where you're suddenly seeing, if I threw this book up, I would see it sort of hover just above, and you think, you know, be very strange existence, but still, I guess you get used to it if you're doing that. But whizzing around, I guess you would need to actually be able to see it at that sort of speed, because if you're whizzing around a city like that, weaving in and out, you'd certainly, if anything sort of like piece of paper flew up in front of your face, you'd want to be able to get out of the way of it, because suddenly you'd be bowled over, sort of thing. And well, just great little stories. Like I say, they were quite short in the initial ones. And you got here, of course, there was always a running joke. R.S. West was always turning around and saying how he was the slowest person ever. He'd always turn up late for things. Bit unfair, but however, I love that use of panels, those long panels there. That was always quite nice. So it wasn't always the sort of conventional 6 panels. There was a bit of a sort of And I think long panels actually work with the Flash. You give it a nice sort either horizontally or vertically. And I think, but often he did just go for more conventional. Well, but then again, you've got the lovely use of time. Discharge your electricity on this, and then you've got the next panel, and then the next panel. Sort of nice sequence. You can see the flow, which is quite nice with the Fastest Man Alive. And that's going to really come into it a lot in comics, where you've got what do you do next panel. Many ways, other stories, Green Lantern, that sort of thing, doesn't really rely on that sort of thing, not as much. I mean, but the Flash, there is definitely a use of panels, and I love that when he's sort of, oh, well, I want to get something over in certain places, over in France or in London, just mysteriously whizzes off to these sort of places. And yet somehow he can never turn up to his date in time. This is Flash, when are we... All those sorts of things, just great. I always loved the Iris West character. And actually I loved all the cast that was in this. It was always and also a great set of villains as well. Mostly all pretty useless villains, Trickster and those sort of people. But they were just a great group of rogues that the Pied Piper of Peril. The Piper and the Flash stopped in his tracks. Always loved it. I always wish they'd put, instead of that, I wish they'd put the adverts. Because obviously I assumed that there was an advert at that point and not... I love this also as well. When you had sort of the alternate worlds or whatever, aliens and things that turned up in these sort of things, which I always thought was quite nice. And Grodd, of course. Good old Grodd there. However, the Sunken Satellite, there was just great stories, lots and lots of... Now, some of the characters did reappear a number of times, but it was still... also, Iris West's father there as well. Instead of being, obviously, a detective, it was obviously a scientist there. In many ways, they could have done that in the series, I suppose, but I guess, well, they decided not to do that approach. And also, of course, you've got... my favourite, Elongated Man. I loved the Elongated Man character. Captain Cold, just very creepy storyline. He was obviously always falling in love with Iris West. I don't think they did that, they didn't in the TV series. What other characters in it? Like I was just quickly looking at Mirror Master, of course. That was one thing I liked. Oh yeah, Elongated Man. I knew I finally found. And again, great use of long panels there. Definitely something you need to do with a character that stretches like good old Ralph there. Great character. I bought the showcase volume of that, and I just would love to see an elongated omnibus edition. I somehow suspect that will never turn up, unless they made a film, I guess. It's possible, if they did. One thing I did like in this, and this is, I'm quickly trying to look for a story with it, because of course it's always the way, you never can. That's what I was looking for. Green Lantern. So you've got a couple of these great stories with Green Lantern where he... I always felt they should have done a Green Lantern and Flash comic book. Sort of like the world's finest sort of thing. It would have been brilliant. There was just a great relationship between the characters. And I just would have worked, I think. But they never did. Obviously, it was nice when they occasionally turned up and sort of would have a sort of... And of course, you had the classic Flash there. Golden Age Flash. Now, that actually... matches how I think they should have done the story instead of the alternate worlds. I still think that they should have just put them all in an iceberg or something. All of the Golden Age characters, all mysteriously in an adventure where they're all in the same place at the same time, and suddenly they all get frozen, and then they all get woken up in 1964 or something like Captain America. That would have been a great little storyline. That would have solved all the problem of the crisis. They wouldn't have been in a crisis. It would have all been on the same universe and dimension, whatever, and that would have been great. Parallel world. But then another good old Green Lantern story. I thought they were always great. I just thought it was a real good little storyline with that. However, what a brilliant volume. I love this. The great little stories. Flash, Iris West, everything. Just about it was just absolutely superb. Only pity, no bonus material. Say absolutely nothing, and I'm going to be proved wrong. No, definitely no bonus material. But it does have, of course, the usual. You've got the biographies at the back. Biographies are always slightly depressing. Actually, they're always depressing. I think probably more so than any biographies. Is virtually all of them. It always says Infantino passed away 2013. Fox passed away in 1986. Joe Kubert, etc., etc. You know that. passed away in 2015, Murphy Anderson. And Sachs passed away in 1998. And it's like all my favourite artists, writers, etc. all, and it's sometimes when you think that they live forever. They're there forever. They're always going to be around. But then you read at the biography at the back and you think, anyway. The Flash, the Silver Age, I think it's just an absolutely superb volume. I love it. There's also 2 other volumes. They're equally brilliant as well, and I will be going through those as well. So that's The Flash, and his game. Let's quickly show the cover. I'll take it off. Otherwise, it's very hard to handle, actually. When you've got this on that, it just makes... Oh, it actually got the covers there. So you can see that I've obviously got in a slightly different order. So Silver Age, Omnibus Volume 2, and there's the Volume 3. And you've got Teen Titans, and you've got Adam Strange. I'm not certain why they advertised that one on here. Would have been Green Lantern, would have been a better choice, I would have thought. But still, that's what they did. So, totally recommended.